But Jim Nicholson, an obituary writer, says they should be true portraits. He believes someone's bad habits and criminal background, if they exist, should be part of an obituary. Many editors would disagree. Families are not likely to be happy with unflattering material. Generally, news editors weigh whether a criminal background was a crucial part of the person's life and if the crime was highly publicized. The importance of facts. A misspelled name or a factual error is a major problem in any story. In an obituary, it's disastrous. So you should check every fact, every name, every reference. And some more obituary guidelines. So that's just a brief snapshot of chapter 17, profiles and obituaries, that I would like you to read. Let's move on to chapter 18, speeches, news, conferences, and meetings. Coaching tips. Do your homework. Check clips and online sources for background about the speaker or issue. Include audience reactions and responses to questions at speeches, meetings, and news conferences. Try to get as many good quotes and sound bites as possible. Write a highlights box to accompany your story. Get the full text of speeches and documents from meetings to post on websites. Record audio or video to post on the web. This is from Mark Fagan, a reporter. The comments officials make during a meeting are for public posturing. Some of the best quotes you get are after the meeting when you ask them to explain why they did or said something. So I covered Syracuse City Hall, and this is so true. I can get sound during these common council meetings where counselors are speaking in front of the public. But the best material and the things that explain things, you have to go up to these counselors after the meeting and talk to them and get them to talk to you and ask them the questions. That's where you're going to get your best sound, some of your best quotes will come from there, and information about what the heck they're talking about. Sometimes you just don't understand what's going on when you're at these meetings. Good introduction here. I want you to read. Okay. This was the quote that he made. The comments officials make during meetings are for public posturing, like we just said. That advice also applies to someone from the public who speaks at a meeting. A person may speak for 30 seconds at a public meeting, and afterwards she'll tell you, my kid needs a safe place to walk because he was attacked 2 years ago, Fagan says. Don't just sit in the meeting if the person leaves. Follow him or her out and get those additional comments. That is so true, and something I did as well. You will have the members of the public speak up at public hearings. They're going to say something, but you still need to get that person's name and you have to get the spelling. And so I used to follow people after they speak, and you've got to follow up and ask them questions. What you write before the meeting is even more important, Fagan says. That's also true. You want to do your research going into a meeting if it's a council meeting and they're discussing some topic. He writes, at least one story to tell readers what officials will discuss. He writes at least one story to tell readers what officials will discuss at their next meeting. That's like a preview of something that's going to happen. That's really good. He also provides timely tweets about meetings and events on his beat before, during, and after the events. That's always great. Tweeting from City Hall, tweeting live about what's happening. If people don't know what officials plan to do, they won't get a chance to participate in government. That's why this is so important. Although many newspapers and TV news programs are curtailing local government meeting coverage because the news is sometimes dull, which it can be, Fagan thinks that's a mistake. Meetings are where officials make decisions that affect the public. That is so true. He says, I'll write stories sometimes and no one from the public will show up at a meeting. I've definitely been there. And I wonder if what I do makes a difference. Then the city commissioner will say, I got about 20 phone calls about your article, so I know people are reading them. And think about it. If nobody from the public is attending, it doesn't mean that people aren't interested. It's your job to make it interesting. These meetings that happens at City Hall with the council, with a council, legislative body that is making decisions and making laws, that is all affecting the public in your city. And so it's your job to take something that's a dull, boring, maybe meeting and make it interesting. Because it's affecting people. They're making decisions that affects a community. Even if people don't read his stories or attend the meetings, Fagan thinks it's important for reporters to be there as watchdogs for the public. I put the commissioner's comments in the paper and everyone knows where they stand, Fagan says. That's a great power of the press, which is so true. Okay, some ethical guidelines. The Radio, Television, Digital News Association has created social media and blogging guidelines. The organization says this about image and reputation. Remember that what's posted online is open to the public, even if you consider it to be private. Personal and professional lives merge online. Newsroom employees should recognize that even though their comments may seem to be in their private space, their words become direct extension of their news organizations. Avoid posting photos or any other content on any website, blog, social network, video, photo sharing website that might embarrass you or undermine your journalistic credibility. Because guess what? And even if you're just trying to get a job, employers are going to be researching you and looking things up about you. When you work for a journalism organization, you represent that organization on and off the clock. Whenever you are covering a meeting, it's important to look beyond what officials say publicly. Fagan says reporters should ask questions before and after the public event to find out how the story affects readers and viewers. An item on a meeting agenda may say they are going to award bids for highway improvements on North 2nd Street, he says. I look at that and say, what does that mean? Are they going to widen the street? This is the only artery that connects downtown and an old neighborhood. Are they going to close the road to traffic for 8 months? This is how officials plan to spend taxpayers' money. You need to find out how it affects readers. Stories about meetings, the decisions that affect readers' daily lives, such as where they take their trash, get their water, send their children to school, are made by local government officials at meetings. Countless surveys conducted by news organizations reveal that local news is near or at the top of the list of the kinds of stories readers and viewers want. Yet meeting stories are often written without explaining their real impact on the reader. All states have open meeting laws requiring officials who have the authority to spend public funds to conduct their business in public. These boards may conduct executive sessions behind closed doors for certain discussions, such as personnel matters, collective bargaining, lawsuits, things like that. But all decisions must be made in a public meeting. Although open meeting laws vary from state to state, most of them require public agencies to give advance notice, usually 48 hours of their meetings, and to conduct public hearings. Understanding the system, writing the advance. Many times knowing what is going to happen at a meeting is more important to readers than knowing what did happen. A story that tells readers what is being proposed can alert residents to make their concerns known before a measure is adopted by local officials. Covering the meeting, arrive early. Great advice to anything, any interview you go to. Find out the names of board members, counselors. Usually they have name tags. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Find out who is in charge. Ask board members, especially the head of the board, whether you may talk to them after the meeting. If you know people in the audience who are leaders of a group favoring or opposing a controversial issue, greet them and tell them you would like to get comments after the meeting. Check items on the agenda and get any background that you need. Don't remain glued to a seat at a press table. Great advice. When members of the audience give public comments, get their names and more comments. Many times they will leave immediately after their testimony. Follow them